why you should automate AP webinar today with the resource group. I want to thank our friends of the resource group for hosting this webinar with us today. And quick introductions. We have about 15 minutes, so I'm going to be going at a pretty fast clip. But I'm Mark Palumbo. I'm the Alliance Manager here for our partner channel. I work with two of the primary partner systems that the resource group works with, which includes Microsoft as well as Intact. I know many of you may be using Dynamics products or an Intact ERP system, as well as other accounting systems. And I've also got Hannah Horning on the line. If Hannah, you want to say hello, she's our marketing coordinator, will be assisting me today.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining.
Great. So we'll have questions, hopefully at the end, if you have anybody who wants to ask anything. So jumping right into it, I want to talk about what is AP automation. So, you know, we hear a lot of our competitors out there and other folks talking about AP automation. We see a lot of document management solutions, T&E solutions, other payment networks. And really how we differentiate ourselves at AvidXchange is that we actually do both a software as a service as well as a managed service offering to really, at the end of the day, simplify your entire payments process. So it's about not just indexing all of your invoices that come into the system, we'll talk about that a little bit later, but also helping you to pay your vendors so that your vendors get paid how they want to get paid, whether it's via a check, via an ACH payment, or via a virtual card, MasterCard payment. So one of the things that we really pride ourselves on is simplifying the entire automation process. What that looks like for most finance departments and folks that are in the AP department today, you'll probably recognize this slide. And all of these areas where you see circles or bubbles are things that are involved in your AP automation workflow. So if you're not automating things, you're doing things like opening invoices and opening mail and, you know, filing those invoices and, you know, entering POs into your ERP system, routing mail approvals to different people in the departments to say, hey, has this been budgeted for? And then, of course, you've got to do the accounting system entry, and maybe you've got to then, of course, do your monthly or weekly or daily check runs to actually send those checks out to the vendors. And then you have those wonderful filing cabinets. You file them away for those end-of-year audits, which we all love our audits when they come in and the auditors say, hey, I need a copy of invoice number 24632, and I need to know what the check was for $500 dated such and such date. And your guys scramble around looking for invoices and checks. And so the beautiful thing about AvidXchange, I mentioned earlier, you know, we're both a software as a service and a managed services. We simplify this entire process. So everywhere you see an X, AvidXchange actually takes over that manual process, and we actually simplify that. So the only thing that your team really has to worry about is coding, which in fact a lot of the coding we also simplify. We have automated artificial intelligence built into our system so that we know that if it's a typical plumbing supply GL code or electrical supply GL code, we'll recognize those GL codes over time to make that coding process even simpler. And approvals become easier, so whether you've got folks in the office, in remote offices across the country, or maybe your CFO is on vacation in Hawaii while your CEO is at a conference in New York, they can click in via a mobile device like their cell phone and actually do their approvals that way as well. And then last but not least, you're posting it to your general ledger system, so you've got that nicely filed away in the cloud versus in a filing cabinet. So when you have time at the end of the year for those audits, that research becomes very painless. You give read-only access to your auditors. They can look up invoices and payments of checks to their heart's content without ever having to bother your staff. So we actually came up with an ebook, The Top 5 Signs Why You Should Be Looking at AP Automation this year, and we're going to talk about two of them. And obviously the number one that we're seeing out there is the economy is on a tear right now. The stock market's an all-time high. Small businesses are growing once again, which is huge. But what that results in with all these small businesses and big businesses growing is it means you're increasing your capital expenditures. You're growing the business, so you're obviously increasing the number of suppliers you're making payments to or contractors. Maybe you're adding new suppliers to the network that you have to manage, which also becomes more painful for you because now you've got maybe 2 or 3 times the volume of invoices and payments that you were making, say, a year or 2 years ago in today's market as the company is growing. So what's exciting about that is, again, we give you that ability to simplify that process. We help you not just with the AP automation piece of it, but also with vendor enrollment and vendor management. So managing the suppliers network, we have over 350,000 vendors and suppliers today on our AvidPay network. So we can dramatically cut down the time that it would take for you to process those payments and obviously help you with those invoices as you're ingesting them into the system. And we'll talk more about that here in just a bit. Another sign that you may wish to automate is you've been a victim of fraud. So this is something most organizations don't like to talk about because it only takes one time, as we've seen with the number of credit card hacks. Like I just heard in the news today that poor Chipotle that had all the issues a few years back, they just got hacked with their credit card systems today. And so, the point is, fraud is just a part of life today. And so you've got to have secure systems. And what a lot of small to medium-sized enterprise business don't realize is that it's not just on the, in the cloud and the hacking and their servers, but check fraud is actually one of the #1 issues where organizations are a victim of fraud. And in fact, over 70% of corporate respondents that we did in a recent poll through the Association of Certified Fraud Examiners said that 70% of them were victims of check fraud. And in fact, I'm down here in the Houston, Texas area. We had a healthcare organization just a couple of years ago I was talking about where they had an AP manager. A lot of it is even internal. They had an AP manager that over a 10-year period siphoned off $10 million by creating dummy vendor accounts, about 130 plus dummy vendor accounts, PO boxes, was sending out checks and then going out cashing those checks to himself, essentially creating these dummy businesses. Of course, as most crooks do, he got caught, but took 10 years to figure out they lost $10 million to this fraud. And so to that end, we help you with that. And what we do is essentially through that vendor management enrollment process, we're going to verify that those vendors are actual vendors. If we see an invoice from Acme Corporation in Kansas City or something, we're going to say, hey, does Acme Corporation in Kansas City actually have a valid business license? Are they a real company out there? So we're doing some of that research and helping out on that end. We're also, in addition to scrutinizing invoices, we're also verifying that we've got strict adherence to compliance rules like OFAC, which is like the new terrorism compliance rules. We're looking at other things like exceptions. So if a invoice comes in for $400 a month and then all of a sudden month 6 or 7 it comes in for $1,000, we're going to say, hey, why is this thing all of a sudden $400 or $500 different than what it's been for the past 6 months? And we'll notify you as the client to say, hey, we found an exception here. Is this okay? And then it's just another set of eyes and ears looking at your invoices to be sure that there's nothing fraudulent going on there. And then last but not least, when we're helping you with our AvidPay network, we're also sending out those checks via one of our check processing centers. We have one in Florida as well as California, and we're using Positive Pay, which is a system that the banks use to verify reputable account numbers. Again, taking one less thing off your plate. You don't want to have to worry about your vendors' bank accounts or worrying about if a check's going to get cashed or not. We manage all that process for you, again, simplifying that payment process. So if you're interested in learning more about the other 3 signs, again, there's a total of 5 of them that we wrote up on this ebook. There's the link there. You can get that copy through the resource group. You guys will all get a copy of this deck after the webinar as well, but I encourage you to download it and read it. There's some great information there. So we talked briefly earlier about how we index invoices into our system today. Essentially, there's 5 primary ways that invoices get uploaded into the AvidXchange cloud portal. One is simply email. You email us the invoice. We index it for you. We put it in the system, again, verify the information in the invoice, etc. We also now have a customized portal for your suppliers. It's a free service for all of the suppliers in our AvidPay network. Again, there's about 350,000 today. That number tends to grow about 2,000 or 3,000 suppliers and vendors a month. So I'm sure that within 6 months we may be encroaching, 400,000 vendors in the network. But what's really cool about this is one of the biggest complaints we get from our customers is that it's very time-consuming when you're getting inquiries from your vendors to say, hey, has my invoice been approved? Or hey, when am I getting my check? Where's my payment? Well, once they actually upload the invoice into the supplier portal, which we call Cash Flow Manager, they can actually see when you've approved that invoice. Oh, it's been approved here on April 20th. Oh, I'm set to get my payment on May 15th. And what that does is going to dramatically cut down the amount of calls and emails you get in the finance department to say, has my invoice been approved, or when am I getting paid? So we feel it's a huge, huge benefit. We're going to be adding more and more features into that portal environment over the next few months. We also have new APIs, application programming interfaces for some of the more popular ERP systems out there, which includes now Intact. We just launched our new Intact Invoice API for those of you that are Intact customers. We also have a new Dynamics GP API that we're in the early adopter stage for, that we're hopefully going to be launching later this quarter. So we're very excited about that. And there's others out there. So again, talk to your resource group, account manager, or salesperson based on what accounting system you're using. We can certainly work with you. We support over 120 different accounting systems today, just to let you know. But again, only a certain number, probably a dozen or so, have a native API. Some of our customers do prefer to scan paper, which I think is probably one of the most painful processes in this entire AP workflow. But certainly if you want the ability to scan your own invoices, we have a reduced rate for that. You can scan your own and then email them or send them up to us to process. And then last but not least, we do have a payables lockbox facility. We have them also on the East Coast, West Coast. We're headquartered in Charlotte, North Carolina, which is our primary facility. But we almost act like a treasury management services company or a division of a bank, where we take those invoices in, we scan them in on your behalf, and then, again, process them for you. So, again, all of these ways of indexing are made to simply make your lives easier and simpler, putting more time back in your day. So I've got a few screenshots here, again, because we only have a few more minutes. I'm not going to spend a whole heck of a lot of time on them, but I do encourage you that if you see, if this is piquing your interest, definitely reach out to your resource group, account manager, salesperson. They will contact us. We'll set up an hour and a half long web demo to really go into the nuts and bolts and the weeds of our solution. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised of all the great reporting and features we have. But, just on the surface, you have pending approvals for invoices. You'll get an email notification when those invoices are coming in. We give you the full rich detail of the header line information, line item detail of those invoices, shows up in the distributions as well. We can also, as I mentioned, with the GL codes, we've got a simplified accounting code process. So maybe you can't remember what the actual number is, but you know it's something in plumbing. You can type in plumbing in the accounting code. It'll pull up the different codes that apply to plumbing. So you want to apply the invoice properly, you can do that. We also give you the full history information. So again, getting back to that fraud comment I made earlier, you want to know exactly who's done what when. You can actually go through and see every person that's touched this invoice. So there's always an audit trail. So again, getting back to your end of your process, we have customers, if you go look at our short videos on our website, we have testimonials where people just rave, like the #1 reason they bought AvidXchange was just for auditing, because it makes their audits a breeze, again, at the end of the month, end of the quarter, or end of the year. We also, again, the ability to help you with your payments. It's called AvidPay. So AvidInvoice is what I just showed you. This is AvidPay. Again, it's a very simple process. You batch up those invoices that are ready to get paid. You send them over to the AvidPay network. We actually will issue either checks or ACH or virtual card payment, depending on how your suppliers want to get paid. We give them the choice and the option whether they want to get paid in 30 days with that check, or they want to get paid in a couple days via a merchant card fee. And then once that payment has been made, you'll see the status. So in the case of a check, it's been issued. So, if something hasn't been cashed for, 7 or 14 days, we do a periodic checkup calls to be sure that those checks are getting cashed and there's no issues with the vendor. It's another area of our managed services that we help out with. And of course, if it's an e-payment, you'll see that it was initiated immediately, so you can actually see what date and what amount when that was cut. And then again, the history is awesome. Full remittance detail, so you can see the copies of the checks front and back. Again, auditors love this. They want to know exactly what bank it's been cashed on, what the check number was, all that fun stuff. All that detailed information is in the service. It's stored in the cloud. And then your suppliers, same detail. They get full rich remittance detail via email, and they can also look up this information in the new supplier portal, again, Cash Flow Manager, to see when that what the information is on the payment they've received. And that was it. So wow, 14 minutes. How'd I do, Hannah?
You did well. I'm very impressed.
Okay, good. Well, again, we really appreciate everyone's time. Going to do a quick poll. Again, want to thank the folks at the Resource Group for having us today. I will be in town for the RG Connect conference, which will be on May 11th. we're really looking forward to it. I think Kim said that they're expecting a big crowd at the conference, so we're really excited about that. My counterpart, or one of the guys who works on my team, colleague Santiago de Lama, will be presenting as well at that conference. So we encourage you to definitely stop by and see us, and love to meet you in person. And I will now open it up for questions. Go ahead.
Sorry, it looks like we have 50% have voted, so let's just give it another second or so to give everybody a chance. We're at 60%, so if you want to, we're just trying to capture your information on how you want to be followed up. We're at 75%, so we'll close it down in just a couple of seconds to capture the last information.
Okay, no worries. And folks, we're at our 15 minutes, and we really appreciate your time, how valuable it is. But certainly, Hannah and I will hang out here for another few minutes if there's any questions that you have. And certainly, again, you can follow up with us directly, or ideally follow up with your account manager or salesperson or consultant at the resource group. And we will definitely love to have you on a more detailed demo or presentation for you one-on-one.
Great. Mark and Hannah, thank you so much for doing this quick webinar for us. And as you mentioned, go and visit them at RG Connect on May 11th, or reach out to the resource group, and we will get a personalized demo set up for you as well.
Great. So should we open up for questions, Hannah, or pack it up?
Yep, let's open it up for questions, and if they have to drop off, they can, and we can take questions now.
Great. Thanks for everyone's time.
So
again,
if you have questions, just put it in the question box, and then we'll monitor that for a couple of minutes. We do have our first question, Mark, so I'll go ahead and read it. It says, how long does this take to implement this?
That is a wonderful question. We have a 45-day implementation guarantee. So what does that mean? We guarantee that we will have you up and running within 45 days. If not, we actually impose penalties on ourselves for not hitting that deadline. And for many of our clients, if they beat that deadline, sometimes we actually give them something back in implementation to actually make that happen. So we have some great incentives to get you up and running as fast as possible, but we do guarantee 45 days is on average. And typical customers are up within 30 days.
Perfect. Thanks, Mark. And we do have another question. It says, I've looked at document management, but how is this different?
That's another great question. So as I mentioned earlier, we are a software and a service. So there's a managed service component. We have over 950 employees. Probably didn't mention how big AvidXchange was earlier, but we're growing like a rocket. And to that end, like I said, we have a whole team around AvidInvoice that does the indexing of invoices, looks for exceptions, contacts customers to see if there's any fraudulent or potential security risks or compliant risks on the account. Our AvidPay team works with suppliers. They call them directly. We actually have a team now that manages some of the bigger suppliers like Staples and Verizon, some of the bigger, mainstay folks that people are using on a day-to-day basis. And so to that end, you will not get that typically from a document management company. So I know there's numbers out there. I won't, name names here, but most document management companies, what they do a really good job of is managing your documents. And so what I mean by that is, like, you think about SharePoint or workflow processes, managing something from the contract to the PO to the invoice process. That's okay. What they're not helping out with is the actual payments process. Actually making those payments to your suppliers. They're also not helping you out with vendor enrollment, vendor management, which is a big deal. You don't want to have to manage your vendor's bank account information or their ACH information. So again, we take that headache off your hands. They also don't help out with the auditing and the supplier management, as I mentioned, with the cash flow manager portal. So again, they do a really good job of document management, but we're specialists in AP. It's all we do is we specialize in helping you with your invoices, your POs, and your payments. Hopefully that clarifies for you.
Perfect. Thanks, Mark. And we have one more question in the queue, and it's our last one. So if you have a last-minute question, just type it in while he's answering this last one. And it says, what Dynamics products do you integrate with?
That's another great question. So as I mentioned, we now have a GP API invoice module that we just launched, and we don't charge anything additional for this. So if you are a GP customer, you would get that as part of your normal implementation. We are working on our roadmap on the analytic accounting portion for GP, which is a little more complicated. So I think we'll be doing early adopters on that sometime over the summer. We're looking at hopefully July, August. And then we'll be hopefully launching a GP payments module later this year, hopefully Q3, early Q4 timeframe. So we'll actually be at the Dynamic Summit later this year. Maybe we're going to try to see if we hit that deadline for the Nashville Gaylord Summit in October. And then on the other products with NAV or with SL or AX, it is a file-based integration. So we would certainly work with your consultant at the resource group to kind of walk you through the particulars, but we do have a ton of customers today. We have over 6,000 customers nationwide, but a good portion use SL and NAV, and we do have a few AX customers as well. There's some little intricacies with AX, but NAV, SL, and GP should be no issue whatsoever.
Great, thanks, Mark. And we don't have any other questions, so I think we can close down the session.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, everybody. Appreciate it. Really love the partnership we have with the resource group, and looking forward to seeing everybody hopefully at RG Connect in a few weeks.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.